Hello everyone, I'm Stępień, and today I would like to share with you my journey that made me question all of my past architectural decisions it took when I was running past Flutter projects. In this presentation, I will try to achieve one of the following. If you are the kind of person who already is comfortable within your own architecture, but the first question you ask at the interview is whether this project is using Block or Riverpod, I will try to convince you to change the way you think about the project and as a whole and your part. If you're the guy that keeps on complaining about your teammate doing crazy solutions, doing it way too complex or doing it way too simple, I will give you a simple set of tools to align the development between the engineers. If you are the kind of guy that is sure that the solution you come up with is the best one, but you kind of struggle to convince others to it, I will invite you to either reconsider if it really is the best one, or I will show you how to impact other devs to get on your side with it. And if you are the developer that understands that running a project goes way beyond Flutter and Dart, and if you understand that your current point of view may not actually be the best one, but you try to take into the consideration pretty much all the possible technical solutions that you know of, you also took into the consideration the cost of change, your team capacity, and the outcome of the project that you are trying to run, then I would like to connect with you later on and to share your thoughts about it. But my ultimate goal for this talk is to make you think. So how it all started? It started a couple of years ago when I joined an already live project with a 100K plus number of active users. And when I joined the project, I immediately started imposing my old ways of working of the corporates, of the large-scale project in established companies. And as most of devs at a certain stage of career, I thought that I found a silver bullet that's going to run 80% of the projects, and this is the way to go. Unfortunately, it wasn't the case. I quickly realized that what I learned in the past is not working in a startup. The project that I worked in the past had a top-down overlook of PM, had precisely described business requirements, had a team of testers designing the work ahead of time for developers. There was not existent in startup. It's a startup. All of this that we took for granted if we come from corporates, it's not there for startup. So what to do about it? It really took us a significant time to come up with a plan that was good enough to get the project to the state that we are at now. It took us some trials and errors. We implemented huge architectural structures and made decisions, gave it a try, just to after 2 weeks completely scrap it because it was not working for us. And those kind of iterations that we are doing was almost 2 years of going back and forth within it. So how could we do it? At first, we had to set the priorities. So when making any coding changes, you always play the game of compromises. There are obviously some solutions that are pure evil, such as naming variables variable one and coding React Native, but we're not going to cover that. There is a famous saying that fast, cheap, and good beat two. So we started with that. And on top of that, we added scalability. As for a startup, this is an important factor. After we placed the priorities over the line of priorities, we realized that we actually had to optimize for speed of development. Again, speed of delivery of development and not the Flutter performance itself. So even the quality of the software was a secondary thing for us. We had to deliver a feature so quick to give it a try, to show it to the market, to get some data of it, and actually most of the cases scrap it within 2 or 3 weeks. So we still obviously are fully responsible for the software to work, to function, not to crash. But the optimization of speed of development came up as a main factor for us. So this was the biggest bottleneck. To be honest, when I first saw it, it was scary. I came from completely different experience. I haven't even done it in the past. And I was used to getting project from estimation planning to execution to the end. And there is a saying that 9 developers can't carry a child in 1 month, or something like that. So this is what we tried to optimize for. Actually, to quicken already fast pace of startup environment. To do that, we came up with a strategy to make the developer experience so smooth that you fly through the code with little to no problems, in case we have to really scrap the solution. When you got the purpose of Refactor figured out, what we needed was a solid plan to move on, with many steps we had in mind. Let's get us to the part 1, which is the preparation as usual. Before you even start considering any changes to your project architecture, you need to establish the place you are at. For the in-depth guide, you can definitely check out the guide made by Daria Orlova in the last Fluttercon to really audit your Flutter app from the beginning to scratch. So what is our project stage? You probably are aware of what it looks like now. But yeah, we had the 4 layers that were supposed to look like this. But the reality was different. For me, it was clear that whatever we have to do, the first step is of this long-term changes that we want to do is to have the arrows going up and down and not like all around. So this was actually the first main goal of the code refactoring, at least let's say for now. It's worth to mention that all the changes that we did was done only because of developers. It was developers' initiative to take care of the project. And actually, we made a lot of effort to business not even realizing that we are doing the change. Of course, we made it clear that we are doing it, yet they were not sure what's happening. Basically, whenever we were done with the task quicker than we anticipated, or happened to have like a lazy sprint, then we jumped in and tried to untangle this together. So how to handle this in an effective way? Good question. So you have to start with a cleanup. And we're going to start with a cleanup of the project file structure. And obviously this simple step is often skipped, but it carries a great value. It can be as simple as just choosing the correct naming strategy. It can be choosing the directory structure. It can be deciding whether to use bar files or not. You name it. This step is like cleaning operating table before even conducting any changes. You do not touch the patient yet. You are there for making it possible for the next steps to actually create as little infection surface as possible. Make sure that the whole project uses the same naming strategy for the same pieces of architecture. That the files named models are actually inside models, that they live in the correct folders, that repositories, services, data sources, actions, reactions, you name it, are in the place that they're supposed to be. And according to the current state of the project. In case you lack any architecture, just make sure that they're in the same pattern. It makes the next steps much more predictable and much more consistent. So in our case, obviously, we had misaligned naming strategy. We had some files that were actually had some model suffix and were not models even. We actually had the wrong directories all over the project. plural and singular form of the directories were all over the place. We only had actually a few bar files that were introduced at some point, so we decided just to scrap them. Additionally, many files were containing multiple widgets within the single file, and like all of you probably are like young, come on, like who cares? Like why this matters? And I will answer this. We refactor for the developer experience to speed up the development. And it is important to realize that everything that impacts your daily coding is actually slowing you down in your daily tasks. And you do it so many that over the time, it's going to accumulate to a real amount of time you could already contribute to the project. How many of you uses Command P or Control P shortcut in the Visual Studio Code? I was expecting more to know. How many of you had chose a class name in past and were trying to find it in the project, but because the file and the class was not named the same, you had to go through the whole project and searching for it for no real reason. Like you knew that the class is there, you used it, you even created it sometime, yet you could not locate it with this simple tool that helps us every day. It sounds like a silly problem, but these little things really create developer experience frictions and make the project far less predictable. And the predictable code actually speeds up the development time. That was exactly what we were looking in our unique environment. So let's take a look at the next simple cleanup step, the dependency check. So obviously this one is a little bit more challenging, but it's very insightful. If you visit the dependencies of your project, if you're using modules, also probably visit the module pub spec and take your time at it. Read it and understand what your project carries within it. Make sure that every dependency is not only necessary and used, but also check for the packages that do the same work for you in different parts of the application. Like you can have imports that are capable of doing the same functionality, but it just happened that it was imported by two different developers at two different features at two different times in your app lifecycle. In our case, we found out multiple state management usage. So we were using blocks in Qubit, and we were using MobX. We also used change notifier to pass around the state. And actually, for me, it was the first time that I saw MobX in action. And since the most of our project had a MobX implementation already in place, we decided that the lowest effort for us was to replace the blocks and change notifiers with the MobX stores, just for the consistency. I will further use this example as a piece of refactoring done within the splitting of the logical layers, as this is an important piece of it. So we decided that we identified the problems. Obviously, it was many more than that, but just for the sake of presentation, let's say that this is the representative view. So when we got the cleanup of the way, it's time to go to the planning. Start with defining what you try to achieve before starting any work. I assume you already know your workflow habits. You got it from working on the features, but in case it is not, I will say it again. Plan your code. Okay? So our goal was simple. We had correct split of layers and single management. That's the goal. Let's define when you call the job done. Again, I cannot express how many times in my life I heard developers saying at the daily stand-up, "Oh, I'm doing the refactoring of the homepage for 3 weeks." I know that for sure most of this time is, let's call it softly, underperforming, but I hope it's not you guys. In our case, we want to have the dependency injection mechanism used across the app according to the layers that we decided on. We also wanted to have no Flutter block dependency in the project and no change notifier usages for a state reason. So simple as that. Next, split the task. What we did is create a large task in our project management tool and create multiple subtasks for each single block and qubit to be rewritten. This is a very important one, as this lets you parallel the work of the many developers. You don't intrude each other at the daily workflow, and you can handle as little as you can without compromising any deadlines and still moving the project towards stability. The final planning step is without a doubt the most important one. Communicate. This is always the hardest when moving in extreme speed. Make sure that all the tasks are moving around the board and are always up to date. This is crucial for not only refactoring, but also your daily workflow. I know we devs are all over the place in the project and sometimes you just forget about it. But look at it from a different perspective. If you don't gonna show it around, no one's gonna notice it. No one's gonna know that actually some work was done towards it. It's simple, yet so many times I saw boards or communication being the key failure points for the teams. By keeping track and having them in sync, we were able to actually do the refactoring within our delivery, in between our delivery, by 3 devs simultaneously. Of course, splitting the task was a big part of it. So when we have the plan set, what's now? Yeah, simple as that. Just do it. With all the preparations in place, this actually is the simplest task. All the preparation steps are in such a great value, yet we tend to underestimate it. Which brings us to where the fun started, actually. Why we hate MobX and yet we still use it. So we did the first refactoring iteration. We made a cleanup alignment. We actually finally got to one state management across the whole application. Huge success. Now was the decision point for us, whether what we want to migrate to, because the actual real reason why we wanted to get to all this cleanup was to get rid of the model. The correct logic split of the logical layers, it is also essential for any healthy project. So it was great that we did it. But we really struggled to understand the models. Not only how it works, but how to play with it well. So we started the second refactoring loop. We went into the planning, the state management rewrite. That means we had to define the reason for change. We don't like the build runner in state management. The developer experience for it is not great. So developer experience, again, for us, was crucial. But before we jump into the full app state management refactoring, maybe there is something we can do with it. And there is. How about just optimizing the build runner well? Yeah, we did nothing crazy. We just made sure that the build runner does not bother to checking the files that it doesn't necessarily have to. And based on this simple configuration, we were able to get the build runner from like 2-minute runtime to under 30 seconds, which kind of for developers was acceptable time. This means that on every state change, we saved 1.5 minutes. That's very precious time. So we did it only because we started using build runner correctly. We didn't do any magic. And of course, this has to be first. You've still at first has to do the proper cleanup of the project naming to be using naming strategy for anything. So yeah, again, our cleanup state proved valuable. So we went to the other pain point. Like MobX store does not auto-dispose for reaction listeners. which can cause memory leaks if devs are forgetful about it. And this is a serious one. For this one, you need to know just a little bit about MobX, which is that the reactions concept basically reacts to the observable changes and then triggers some side effects. That's it. And this leaves you with a class that's reaction disposed, and then basically you should stop watching the observable whenever you want to do it, which again, you have to remember to dispose. It was a minor bump, like nothing crazy. We added a wrapper over the provider because we were using provider for the MobX provided in the widget tree. And yeah, the wrapper itself was just a simple stateful widget that was causing the dispose. And we ended up with MobX store being correctly cleaned and disposed and all the restraints being cancelled. So we were able to come around the two pain points that actually for us was the main reason we really wanted to get rid of the MobX. And after we considered other inconveniences, we figured that we can actually live with it. So other than these two developer experience pain points, we said that this image management tool is good as any, actually. So we did not move away from MobX. And it actually proved me 100% that my team is senior enough to just accept this fact. It's a tough pill to swallow, really, for us to accept that we are wrong, that maybe something we already have is good enough to carry the project through. And even though that each of us had a different preferences regarding how the dream state management will look like, our personal preference does not matter. What matters is the project stability and health. So if MobX stays, we need to set a good way of working with it. And for that, we need development alignment. So we were a team of 3 devs. And it is common that every dev has its own style of coding, their own way of formatting code, naming strategy, positioning the methods and properties within the file. So all of this is great that we all have their own style, but it brings more chaos in and it makes the code less predictable. And we already know that predictable code speeds up the development. So when you optimize for speed of development, we needed the code to be so boring that you don't have to spend even a minute on something that was already thought of. So there is no value in repetitively arguing over the same already established patterns. And to do that, we agreed to use the two simple developer alignment mechanisms. We did, again, nothing crazy. We created a section in README as a documentation on every single agreed guideline for development. From naming convention to style of the store writing, order of methods and properties. We completely banned usage of null save, the bang operator of the null save, as it was adding unpredictability. Every single problem we met and that we could resolve, we added to the README file. It grew big. And on top of it, we signed a contract with our GitHub names. This cut down the discussions in the PRs for already established solutions quite a lot. Additional benefit was that when the new dev joined in, he already had a full code of conduct of how to work within this project. Of course, everyone was advised to question the decisions that the README contained. And when something new popped up, we also had to figure out the solution for it, which brings us to the weekly meetings. Yeah, we all love that, right? But we really tried to keep it condensed and informative. Basically, again, we went for the simplicity. We pinned single file to the meeting, repetitive meeting, and to this file, landed every single idea. Every topic that you had regarding any part of mobile and actually backend integration also was landing in there. And then on the weekly meeting, we just went from top to bottom. Some meetings lasted 5 minutes. Some lasted 2 hours. At first, it was longer. Then it was getting shorter and shorter. And again, because it is a weekly meeting, the repetition that you're doing is actually bringing more and more value carries over to the next meeting. Everything we figure out, we just add it back to the README file. Simple as that. We had an agreement. We had our arguments, but we never ended up an argument without an agreement. It's true that we were lucky because there was 3 of us, so you always get to choose something. But yeah, in the most complex cases, we were doing actually a small POC and small feature of our app or part of our app to actually prove the value or prove unnecessary. So there were some carryovers from meeting to meeting. And again, it all was created within the board, properly tagged, communicated if someone was doing the task or not, and carried over with it. This tool iterated every single week for almost 2 years. Got into the moment where we stopped writing with it. And yeah, I know that, you stopped writing with it. It's a good excuse for juniors, I know. But we really had a high code rotation. I mean, we were scrapping a lot of code that we created within a month. So for our startup environment, it was just natural that the code changes way more frequent than any project code base. Yes, we did kept the risky logic or the valuable tests that we decided that this should be done. Yet most of our widget tests were actually just slowing us down without benefiting in higher code assurance. We have developed such a boring and repetitive patterns in code that we already had quite a high code assurance due to the stuff that we already agreed on. So most of the bugs were caught at the review, and if some were not, we just value speed of development over quality. We actually allowed for some mistakes just because that's the life in the startup. You have to try some stuff to get a lesson out of it. It does not mean that we do not value good tests. The truth is that after some time, when a feature was sticking in the code base for longer than we anticipated, or actually for longer for good, then yeah, we did prioritize writing tests for it. At first, it broke my heart. I came from my past projects where I more quickly targeted 100% code coverage in tests than actually underwriting tests. But then, after some time, I just accepted it because I saw the value. And the value is not writing tests. The value is actually aligned with our core refactoring value that we set. We want to optimize for speed of development, which leads us to the last point of my presentation. So creating software is a team effort. And the best you can work with it if you have everyone aligned to it. And if you have everyone aligned and agreed to the code of conduct that you created, it's not easy to just accept someone else's solution, someone else's proposal. And it's hard to accept it sometimes. But in my opinion, this is actually what differentiates a good software engineers from great seniors and leaders, that they know when it's time to back up, to come down and actually accept the other person's solutions over yours. It took us months. It was done in between our regular delivery as improvement from developers for developers, because we knew what we wanted to achieve and everyone was on board with the idea. And this actually allowed us to pull this off without business noticing any slowdown. I encourage each of you to think about this on your own project. I know for sure each of you has at least one annoying thing in your project that you would like to change, but it seems hard or almost nearly impossible. If you mention it, target it, plan for it, with a group effort, you can for sure achieve that. The best architecture may exist. The problem is that you have to tailor it for your own project. Clean architecture, as it's called, it's a good starting point for like simple projects, but don't be afraid to try something beyond that. The best architecture is unstable. It's gonna change when your project priorities will change, when your project problems will change, when your product will grow. You have to choose the right one for you. Within the environment, such as startup, we target simplicity and boring code. A monorepo with layered architecture optimized for scrapping and building the features again and again. But maybe you are actually maintaining dozens of Flutter apps within the same company. Then maybe the modularized approach will be more viable for you. As we spend more and more time in a single project, we tend to get ourselves locked in to the same solution. Try to fight it. Open up to unknown solutions, even when they are not Flutter or Dart. Maybe you can benefit from the patterns you notice around. Go talk to other devs. Again, they don't even have to know Flutter. This lets you get a fresh perspective. Be a team player if you want to succeed. Sooner or later, your project will grow too big to handle this alone. Think. If the current solution is best, if the future solution is good enough, if you are happy with the project architecture you are in, if it's not, it's time for a well-planned refactoring.